Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israel strikes back at Iran, attacking military targets after the Islamic regime launched multiple missiles against the Jewish state. President Donald Trump calling on both sides to stand down, but some say the latest exchange of fire could lead to a return of a full-scale war. We're going to bring you the story from Jerusalem. Here at home, we're going to hear from an analyst about where the billions of dollars are coming from behind the anti-ICE riots in the United States. And it's called making Aliyah. That's when Jewish people immigrate to Israel. Most are here in the United States, and there's a growing interest among them to live in the Jewish state. We're going to bring you that story from the Holy Land. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Monday, the 8th of June, going to begin this half hour in the Middle East, where Iran and Israel are once again directly attacking each other. Iran fired about 30 missiles. Israel responded with airstrikes on military targets, including key strategic air defense systems. Chris Mitchell brings us the story now. He's reporting from Jerusalem.
Ballistic missiles from Iran and sirens in Tel Aviv. Early Monday morning, sirens blared in Tel Aviv and throughout central Israel, including Jerusalem, as Iran and its proxies, the Houthis in Yemen, fired a number of ballistic missiles. Iran launched the attacks after Israeli strikes on Hezbollah targets in its stronghold of Beirut. Israel struck back against the Iranian-backed terror group's attacks on northern Israel. Iran claims that justifies its firing on Israel itself. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee posted on X, "The missile alert sounded at 6 a.m. in Jerusalem. They were intercepted, thank God. Iran and its proxies, agents of evil, want to incinerate America and Israel. Mothership of Satan is in Tehran." President Trump is eager to keep peace negotiations with Iran going and told Fox News, "What I would suggest to Iran, you've shot your missiles, that's enough. Get back to the table and make a deal." He also reportedly spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the phone, asking him not to respond to the Iranian attack, later posting, "Israel and Iran must immediately stop shooting." Israeli ambassador to the US Yechiel Leiter wrote, "Iran fired 11 ballistic missiles at Israel today. Each one of those missiles can level an entire neighborhood and kill hundreds. No self-respecting country in the world would tolerate such an attack, and neither will Israel." The IDF spokesman said the IDF completed a large-scale strike on Iran's strategic air defense systems.
A short while ago, the Iranian terrorist regime launched missiles toward the territory of the State of Israel. We were prepared for this. The IDF is strongly prepared in defense and strong in offense. The air defense systems are deployed throughout the country.
Trump said if a deal didn't work, it leaves the U.S. with two options: military action against Iran's remaining nuclear infrastructure or continued economic pressure. On Sunday, Democratic Senator Mark Warner criticized President Trump.
I unfortunately believe that President Trump's war of choice may go down as his biggest folly, because while there has been some incremental progress, we don't have regime change. I think the new crowd is worse than the prior Supreme Leader. We know we don't have the enriched uranium, and I think it's going to be extraordinarily difficult to get it out.
The president telling NBC on Friday,
"It takes years to do these things. These people have been fighting for 47 years. I'm moving very fast. I'm into 3 months. You know, Vietnam lasted 19 years. I'm into my 3rd month."
And Chris joins us now with more. So, Chris, President Trump says he is into his 3rd month in the battle against Iran. Is there a sense in Israel this new round of fighting could last a long time or escalate again into a full-blown war?
Well, Ephraim, earlier today, the IDF briefed some of the military correspondents, and they said preparing for at least several days of fighting. The Americans are assisting in intercepting the missiles. So far, Iran has launched maybe 20 to 24 missiles. The Houthis have fired 2. So from the IDF's perspective, this is not a new operation, a continuation of the War of the Lion. But this could all be mute, Ephraim, if President Trump succeeds in getting both sides to stop shooting. He just put out another message on X, and he says both sides are looking to do an immediate ceasefire. Could change anything, and so we'll see what happens. He told the Financial Times he's calling the shots. But a lot of Israelis, Ephraim, believe the current situation, it's really not a peace agreement. It's simply a pause and hostilities. The hope is that diplomacy and economic pressure can succeed. But if Iran continues to arm Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other proxies, and advances its nuclear program, many here believe another major confrontation is only a matter of time if President Trump gives them the green light.
What can you tell us about what came out of the Security Cabinet meeting?
Well, actually, this is one of the proposals we've heard about that Iran is trying to create an equation between what Hezbollah is doing in Beirut. So if Iran keeps firing missiles, then they can hit Beirut. Israel can hit Beirut, not Iran. The idea is that it's easier, more accessible, and more effective than a response towards Iran. It would help the residents of northern Israel and then create pressure on Hezbollah to tell Iran to go ahead and stop. So some believe this could be also lead the Iranians become more flexible in the negotiations with President Trump. But a lot of people are saying this demand for a deal seemingly at any cost and not being able to respond to Iran is really hurting both the U.S. and Israel's credibility in the region.
President Trump discouraged Israel from striking back against Iran, but Israel did anyway. Is there concern in Israel that the partnership between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump is weakening?
Well, Ephraim, both say it's strong and that the disagreements are normal. There is a concern that it could be weakening, but there's also a concern that really the relationship is too one-sided. Trump saying that he's calling the shots. He said a few weeks ago, Bibi will do what I tell him to do. So this is raising questions among Netanyahu's opposition. And there's a major election coming up later this year. The question being, is Israel sovereign? And or does Israel take orders from President Trump? So there's two sides to this relationship. And Netanyahu really has to manage it wisely, keeping his options open. Both of them share the same strategic goals. They want Iran not to become a nuclear power, limit its regional influence, but they certainly differ on timing, how to get there tactically. I would say overall the relationship remains strong, but certainly it's being tested with the situation today.
What was it like to hear the alarms going off when Iran launched the missiles?
Well, Ephraim, it was startling. It's about 6 a.m. in the morning, and it's just a loud alarm. It's like an alarm clock. U.S. Ambassador to the U.S., Mike Huckabee, as we said in our report, he heard the same alarm. My thinking was, oh, here we go again. We've heard the alarm, and then we actually heard a couple of loud explosions. Usually after the alarm, you get an air raid siren, but there were none, but a couple of loud explosions of the interceptions by the Iron Dome. So everybody here in Israel is checking their phones. They're listening for instructions, heading to the bomb shelters if necessary. It's all about life. This is what life in Israel is like during a war. Schools have closed today and tomorrow. It is still sobering. For example, when I was on my way to work, I thought, well, I better wait until the shrapnel falls, because that's what happens when there's an interception. It's not just the missile itself, but the shrapnel falls down. But Israelis here, they know the drill. They've been doing it for the past few years.
What does Israel's public think now? Do they still support going back to fighting and trying to finish the job and getting rid of the Islamic regime?
I think the answer is yes. The majority of Israelis, Ephraim, they don't want to miss this historic opportunity. They're certainly weary of war, just like I talked about going to bomb shelters, but really more concerned about security. They'd favor diplomacy if it would change the regime, but they don't see much hope in the current leaders. One of the things I've seen in the past few days when the internet was open in Iran is you're seeing videos of people putting like little pieces of paper saying, "Arm us." And for many, that could be the ultimate game changer if the Iranian people rise up and overthrow the regime. But it's hard to do that when the regime has all the guns, as we've seen in the last few months. They're not afraid to kill tens of thousands of their own citizens. So it's so important to be praying for Iran, praying for wisdom for President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I would say, bottom line, you know, Israelis don't want to miss this opportunity to try to end this existential threat to Israel once and for all.
Prayers needed all around. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, we thank you so much for your insight. Looking forward to talking to you in the days ahead this week. Coming up here at home, an expert talks to CBN News about who's putting up the big money behind the anti-ICE protests. We're going to hear from him when we come back. You are watching CBN NewsWatch.
Introducing a brand new way to start your morning. Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Discover how God is moving around the world and here at home. Plus, get exclusive stories and daily scripture encouragement just for you. Stay informed. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Billions of dollars are being spent on anti-ICE riots and anti-Trump protests across America. Now the U.S. Treasury is demanding transparency from the hidden donors. Who are the billionaires bankrolling the chaos, and why are the questions being asked? Gary Lane sat down with Scott Walter, president of the Capital Research Center, to pull back the curtain on the dark money networks and to expose the forces driving the disorder.
The actual Antifa groups, I don't think they get a lot of institutional money, right? So, big foundations are not likely directly giving to Antifa groups. But on the other hand, you have lots of left-wing groups that are mixed up in violence, or somehow always seem to be around when violence happens, or organize protests where violence somehow happens to happen. So, for instance, the group Indivisible fits this category. Indivisible, unlike Antifa, is a registered nonprofit, and it does get money from places like George Soros's Open Society empire, from the Tides Foundation and its empire, and Indivisible happened to be connected to lots and lots, for instance, of the violent Tesla protests, right, where you had Tesla charging stations and Tesla dealerships being harassed. And they are going to be mixed up in things like the anti-ICE protests as well. I'll tell you something that's really encouraging, more even than the Treasury Department. Greenpeace was sued for the violence that happened around the Keystone Pipeline, and 10 ordinary jurors in North Dakota awarded hundreds of millions of dollars in damages against Greenpeace. Now, they're appealing, but that really will get their attention.
Now, these violent protesters showing up at the Delaney Hall Immigration Detention Center in New Jersey, they seem well coordinated and organized, except they fought among themselves about tactics, and then some Antifa supporters were there, flags and signs were seen. This protest was not spontaneous, so who do you think was behind it and other anti-ICE protests like it?
Well, as I said, there are a number of left-wing groups that get mixed up in that one way or another, and then obviously the most violent types like Antifa are very happy to jump into those sorts of protests. But you're right. There's the left's ability to coordinate protests is astounding. If you think about things like the election of Donald Trump, the next day they're having protests. So, and they don't, of course, care. Really, they don't care what the issue is. They just want to be out in the streets. They have this lust for violence, and they're very angry at the whole world, certainly at the U.S. government.
Well, Scott, in your book, Arabella, you talk about wealthy billionaires like Soros that are funding these. So who else is funding them, and what are their goals?
Well, there is, some of the most disturbing things are where there's a foreign influence involved. So the Arabella network, now called Sunflower Services, they've gotten hundreds of millions of dollars from a Swiss billionaire, foreign national, named Hans-Jörg Wyss, and they have been involved across the left, including, by the way, in the Greenpeace protests that had the hundreds of millions of dollars in damages against them. Another person who technically is a U.S. citizen, but in practice is more a pawn of the Chinese Communist Party, is Neville Roy Singham. And he runs, among many other things, he's responsible for something called the People's Forum, which is a place in New York City that helps to organize protests there and elsewhere.
So what more needs to be done then to rein in these sources of dark money? How do we stop them from undermining and destroying America?
Well, you mentioned the Treasury Department. They're going to increase the transparency. So, for instance, in the Arabella network, you had hundreds of fiscally sponsored projects. That's where there's a group that you see as an ordinary American, but it doesn't really have a legal existence. It's just a project of an umbrella nonprofit that may be sponsoring hundreds of such things. They're going to have to be more transparent about that. I hope that the Treasury will also require much greater transparency for any foreign money coming into nonprofits, because, left, right, and center in America, we do not want foreign money affecting our politics.
The book is Arabella, the dark money network of leftist billionaires secretly transforming America. Scott Walter, Capital Research Center, thanks for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Still ahead, she had a beautiful home in California, a great job, and lots of friends. Then came back to the attacks of Hamas October 7th, and this woman left everything behind to live in Israel. See why she and many other American Jews are making Aliyah. We've got the story for you coming up right after this. When Jewish people immigrate to Israel, it's called making Aliyah. 8 million people around the world are eligible to make that move. The majority of them are here in the United States, and there's a growing interest among them to live in the Jewish state. CBN's Julie Stahl brings us the story now from Jerusalem.
Shortly after the war in Gaza began in 2023, California resident Liori Rush decided to immigrate to Israel.
I made Aliyah because of October 7th. That was my wake-up call. All of a sudden, my Jewish soul, my neshama, woke up and said, you can't do that to us.
Rush, a cybersecurity executive, had a very happy life in the Golden State.
I did very well. I have a beautiful home in Silicon Valley. I had tons of friends. I practiced jiu-jitsu. We used to go to my Reform synagogue, and life was great.
She said things changed, however, in California after terrorists invaded Israel and war began.
I did notice after October 7th that there was a lot more showing of Muslim pride, maybe, where you'd see hijabs, like everybody was wearing hijabs. Then there were a couple of Palestinian protests in some of the shopping center areas. So I did notice more of that. And I also was accused of being a Jew.
That's not why she decided to leave, though.
I didn't feel like I was afraid, but I felt like I needed to support my people. People couldn't believe that I was going. The vision that they had was that I was moving to Gaza, I was moving to a war zone, which I knew I was, and I knew that it was in certain areas.
January 15th, 2024, Liori submitted her application to Nefesh B'Nefesh, which handles Aliyah requests from North America. And months later, she and her 2 dogs, Herbert Samuel and Baby Rose, moved to Israel.
Shema, my little babies.
We've seen a quite dramatic increase in Aliyah interest from North America since October 7th, October 8th, the start of this war.
Mark Rosenberg, a vice president at Nefesh B'Nefesh, tells CBN News that's resulted in a 40 to 45% jump in people applying, which has continued the last 2.5 years.
It's remarkable. I think it shows a lot to the spirit of people exploring Aliyah, that it's not just a flash, it's not an emotional connection. I think the main motivator for people who are interested in Aliyah really has to do with quality of life. They want to build their lives here, or they want to raise children here, or they want to open their professional careers here or take it to the next level. There's a lot of commonality that they feel as if that Israel is this great project of the Jewish people.
Since it began in 2002, Nefesh B'Nefesh has helped more than 85,000 North American Jews navigate the immigration process to Israel, settle into their new home, and help them find jobs.
The biggest obstacle to Aliyah, in my opinion, is fear of the unknown. I think anytime people are going to move to a place, they want to make sure that they have a plan in place, whether it comes to schooling for their kids or just their general budget for what they're going to live off of. Another obstacle for people is family, is being far away from family. I think that the internet and these gadgets that we have that have made the world a lot closer for us have caused people to realize that you can stay connected even though you're living on the other side of the world.
Despite the war, Leori says she felt safe because her destiny is in God's hands.
So something could have happened to me in California. You know, maybe I didn't wake up one morning, right? So I had no fear of coming here at all, not even for the language.
She would like everyone to visit and encourages Jewish people who would like to make Aliyah to take the plunge.
I think once you come here, you're home. I never really understood what welcome home meant until I came here. It's just an absolutely amazing place, and I think everybody should come and visit and live here if you want to. It will be an amazing experience.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you so much. Coming up, we'll be right back with an encouraging word for your day. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Discover CBN Family, your gateway to inspiration, faith, and encouragement you can count on. Tune in to your favorite CBN programs. Download the app or go to cbnfamily.com today.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Time now for your Monday motivation. And I want to leave you with this thought as we begin yet another week together. Just know this, no matter what you're facing this week, there is nothing too hard for God. Miracles are not just possible, they are His way. Watch Him work. Cast your cares on Him. Cast your concerns on Him. He stands ready to work a miracle in your life today and this week. Trust Him. He's good. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our news programs online at cbnnews.com. You can also find them on YouTube. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Make this a marvelous Monday and join us right here again tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.